to the BuiltOnAir podcast, the variety show for all things Airtable. Each episode, we cover 4 different segments. It's always fresh and different and lots of fun while you get the insider info on all things Airtable. Our hosts and guests are some of the most senior experts in the Airtable community. Join us live each week on our YouTube channel every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern and join our active community at BuiltOnAir.com/join. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor, OnToAir.com. Any business running on Airtable gets the value that Airtable has, but also needs a few more functions to complete their operations. That's where OnToAir comes in. It's a suite of tools for any business running on Airtable to maximize your operations efficiencies and automations. One customer, John, states that OnToAir enables his business to function properly without having to think about building their own software, and that is pretty invaluable. The OnToAir Airtable apps are amazing, and we use them often and are very happy with the results. So join John and hundreds more customers and take your Airtable to the next level with OnToAir. Sign up today with promo code BuiltOnAir for a 10% discount. Check them out at OnToAir.com. And now let's check out today's episode and see what we built on air. Welcome to this edition of the BuiltOnAir podcast, season 11, episode 12. Good to be back with you this Tuesday morning. Myself, Dan Fellers, and Camille are hosting today. Welcome, Camille.
Hello.
Good to have you as always. Ali couldn't make it today. And we will start having more guests. I believe next week we have a guest coming on. So we always love to have guests. But if you are watching and you are doing anything in Airtable, we'd love to have you come on the show and show us. So please reach out. We'd love to have guests on the show. But I will walk you through what we're going to be talking about today. As always, it's a 1-hour show where we go through different segments. We always start with our Around the Bases to keep you up to date with what's going on Airtable and the different communities. Then a quick shout out to OnToAir, our primary sponsor. Then Camille's going to walk through some scripting and show us how to work with select options for single select and I think also multi-select. Then I'm going to go into the marketplace and showcase an app in the marketplace for Send SMS Easily. And then a quick shout out to how to join our community. And then finally, I will go through an extension to working with SMS and text messages and how to automate that using this app. So with that, around the bases with what's going on in the Airtable community, it was pretty quiet this week. So not a whole lot of activity. I'll start with Airtable's community of what's going on. Again, it was pretty quiet. As we mentioned last time, activity in their community is definitely dwindled off quite a bit, which is sad to see. But a couple of things worth highlighting just briefly. It looks like there's a new app from Gavin at CSV Getter, or a new update to his app. So if you're dealing with data collection or making your data available via an API, you can check out CSV Getter from Gavin. One thing I noticed was this new forms, and maybe the old ones had issues with this and they were just better at detecting, but we're getting some spam coming in to the new forms. So this We Love Flutter is starting to spam with links to products that are not related to Airtable. So hopefully those get cleaned up, and hopefully this doesn't become, I don't remember this being an issue with the old system.
There were like once every 6 months, someone would come on and have what looked like perhaps a genuine question, but about something completely unrelated to Airtable, but nothing to the degree of, I think this is spam. It was always like, I think they're just on the wrong forum. So I don't recall either this being an issue.
Yeah, so we'll see if they are able to kind of clean that up, but hopefully it doesn't take over. But yeah, not a lot going on. There is January 26th, an AMA. So for developers and if you're working with the API, January 26th, apparently this doesn't know to take things off that are past due. So this networking event is already over. But yeah, so keeping up to date with what's going on. But yeah, it's been pretty quiet on the Airtable front. So nothing new. But there have been updates, but they aren't updating them here. So you need to join the BuiltOnAir community. We have amazing people in the community that are always good at spotting new features that come out that don't get the press release from Airtable. So here's one of them from Ben Bailey in the BuiltOnAir community. Apparently they changed, or at least I don't remember seeing this before, but now there's different sections within the comments.
Yeah, so before it was intermixed revision history and comments, and now you can separate it out, which I really like as a feature. Sometimes I just want to look at the comments, but especially in consulting, when you're testing new operations like scripting and whatnot, you're constantly making updates to a test record, but then my team would be making comments about, oh, it should do this, it should do that, and having to filter in between. API has just added these three. It was not ideal, and I think this is a good improvement.
Yeah, for sure, especially if you're comment heavy. A lot of places don't rely too much on comments, but some people do definitely use the comments. So this is great to help, see the revisions. I usually look at the revision history. So good catch by Ben, noticing that. Great addition. There's also another one that Russell Bishop found. And this may have been noticed maybe a little bit longer, but they finally added this mark all as read for the notifications. And he's highlighting that he finally has a clean notifications table or listing.
I have been using Airtable at least since 2018, possibly 2017, and there are so many notifications. I think I had hundreds that were unread, but I knew of. Anything from I've been added to a collaborator field to an automation failed and stuff dating back quite literally 5 years, and I can finally clear them away. It's such a simple thing, but I also very much appreciate this addition.
Yeah. These are nice little additions. Aren't huge features, but definitely help just improve the experience. So good to see that they're spending some time on just the rough around the edges parts of Airtable. So that's a nice new addition. And so you can actually see the unread ones versus the read ones, and then mark all as read.
You can also mark read notifications back as unread if you need to.
Yeah, nice. All right, last one. This was kind of a fun. Hannah from our team posted a thread in the BuiltOnAir community. Tell us 3 words an Airtable creator / builder never wants to hear. And so there's some good lists. We had to work with Jen on counting to 3. She liked to go over, but she did update hers to keep them within 3. I didn't see any from Camille. What's your 3-letter word you don't want to hear, or 3 words?
I remember looking at this, and Kavan had a good one, and it sort of took effectively what I was going to say. Unscheduled service interruption.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And then this one that is far too common, refresh the page.
I think someone else said I deleted it, which is not often good either.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta go with that.
Yeah. More cowbell from Bill French. Classic.
That's 2 words. He's cheating.
That's right. Hit Airtable limit. That's a good one. Yeah, it's not working. need that tomorrow, or today, need that today, probably. So don't be mad. I deleted it. Mm-hmm. So there's some good ones. Fun little way to spend a afternoon coming up with those. So yeah, that's kind of what was going on. I checked Twitter. There's not a whole lot of activity talking about Airtable. So pretty quiet week. I think everybody catching up with the New Year's and delay from the holidays. And so relatively quiet on the Airtable front. We'll see if that changes in the next couple weeks or not. Oh, there was one I was trying to find. Maybe it was sent out over an email. I thought it was a post from Airtable, but I couldn't find it, talking about the changes to attachments. And
it was an email.
Was it an email? Okay.
Yeah. So they sent out another reminder email about the changes to attachments, which are now going to be expiring links, with a little bit more detail, which answered some of my questions and left some of my questions still intact. But yeah, I got the email, and about 10 minutes later, a former client of mine forwarded it back to me and said, "Is this going to change any of the apps that you made?" Which I made like 2 years ago. And I don't think they will, but it's good practice to go back and double check if you've made any sort of scripting implementation or the custom extensions API, just to double check and see if you believe that you would be affected by that practice. I had talked about in our earlier season how I had to switch up my methodology for the way my website was constructed. I was pulling attachment links from Airtable. I now have to pull them from somewhere else because those links would be expiring. But I think we've all come to the conclusion, if you use a consistently updating sync source, like if you have your website built out of Softer or Stacker or Glide or any of those, I believe you should be all right.
Yeah. And what the email, so there was a way where you could opt out of the changes and kind of keep things how they were. And so there was talk of whether you'd always be able to opt out of that. I think some people in the community thought that maybe they would just keep it that way, but the email made it very clear that that's going away. So you won't be able to opt out. So that is going to be forced behavior in the coming weeks. So that might make people upset that had opted out and were relying on the old way and hoping that it continued. All right, let's move on. So OntoAir is our primary sponsor. It's an all-in-one toolkit to run your business on Airtable. You need to check it out at ontoair.com. We did make some changes over the weekend. We are this year, we're focusing really on really pushing forward two of our applications, in particular, our new form apps that I'm going to talk a little bit about, but also our backups. Those are really our core applications. And so we did remove access to some of our other apps. So we're streamlining this year to try to focus and really make those our primary focus. And so there is a backdoor way to get access to some of our other apps. If you're if you already are using our apps, those will continue and be supported. But for new users coming on, you'll just see the backups and the forms as apps that you can utilize. And yeah, so that's our focus going forward, at least for the time being. But with the OntoAir forms, we're still in a private beta. We'll be coming out of private beta, going into a public beta here in the coming weeks. One of the main reasons for that is we really wanted to release with the ability to have conditional logic. And so what that means is if any field is updated and meets certain criteria, you can perform actions on other fields within your form. The most common being showing and hiding fields, but you can also do other things. So this logic. We're in final QA phases. We'll start rolling it out to select customers in the coming days, and then to the rest in a week or so. But just to kind of give you a sneak peek at what that is within the conditional logic, there will just be a tab that has the logic, and then you can create new logic, and you specify conditions on the fields. So you specify a field that you're listening for changes. And so if, for example, the email field, you want to hide certain fields if they haven't entered their email yet. So you say, if the email is empty, that is your condition. Then you want to set up the tasks that get performed based off of that condition. And so you can specify showing fields or hiding fields, or making fields required or optional, or displaying them as text versus being editable, or disabling them. You can also update the actual value of a field, or if it's a date field, set it to now, or a checklist, a checkbox field, you could set to true or false. So the most common, you can show fields, and then you specify which fields you want to show based off of that condition. So you specify these fields, maybe not email, but those ones. And then it has this easy way to create the inverse, which basically means if the condition is not set, then what do you want to perform the opposite task, which is usually what you want to do. So you would basically say, if the condition of the email being empty is met, then I want to show these fields. If it's not met, then I want to hide those same fields. So you simply set that up. And then the last one, there's some optional advanced settings. You can specify that you only want this to run when you're creating a new record, or when you're editing a record, or when any of the fields are updated. And so these usually you don't have to touch. And that's it. Then you hit done, and now you have this logic that's running each time you're updating your form. So some cool stuff you can do. You can do conditional setting of the values or the formulas, things of that nature. So some fun stuff that we're excited to get out there and see people using. So that is coming soon to our users of our new forms. All right, let's move on. We're going to do some segments. We're going to spend some time in the scripting world with Camille. If you want to share your screen.
I sure do.
Talking about options, which are kind of tricky.
So I'm going to do my best to explain sort of an issue with working with select fields in scripting. So as we know, in using Airtable's regular UI, if I look at this select fields options, I have 5 pretty standard select choices. If I don't see one I want, let's say I want just an option called 7, I'm allowed to create a new option as I'm typing and not having to do anything special. If you are connecting to Airtable through different API sources, or if you're using a custom app, there is a relatively simple option that can be enabled typically that lets you do a similar thing. If an option doesn't exist for a single select or a multi-select, you can simply add one as you're updating records. With the scripting environment, using the scripting extension, and I believe the automation scripts, it's not quite as straightforward. There is the ability to update the single select or multi-select field with new choices, but it's not quite as smooth a process. So as I was thinking through this use case, which came through one of the channels on the BuiltOnAir Slack community, friend of the show, I believe it was Jen, was lamenting that it's not straightforward, and it really isn't. As I was thinking through what would you have to add to a script, that is just trying to update or create records with a new select option that doesn't exist, and it's a longer script than I thought it would be. So just showing what we have in place now, which doesn't do anything because I've disabled the create records line. I'm pulling in the single select field in question. You can see all 5 of the current options. I didn't commit the adding the 7, so that's not there. And then I have some dummy data in here with some new values I want to create as I'm creating new records. So I know in progress is already an option. I'm going to just start giving these unique values that don't quite exist in our base. So to talk through the methodology of the script, to get to what we're showing here, we're pulling in the table, in this case, table 1. Then we're pulling in the field. In this case, it's called select. And then I'm displaying what the current configuration of the select field is. And that's how I'm able to see the existing options. Then with that dummy data that I just edited, I'm pulling in, well, what are the values that I'm trying to pass? In this case, for the field select, I'm trying to pass a select option with the name of 6, 7, and 8. These are going to be 3 separate records. The process is going to be very similar for multi-select fields. The only real difference is how you edit the create record or create records. And I call them payloads, whether or not the select bit right here, if this were a multi-select field, this would be an array of objects versus a singular object. And that would be the only difference. There's also no difference between creating new records and updating new records. You could follow along for the exact same use case if you wanted to edit records that already exist, like this one. So now that we have the field and what their current options are, we have the records that we're trying to add, and some of them have, in this case, all of them have select options that don't exist. I believe if I were to uncomment this, we would get an error. We do. So the error that you get is can't create records, invalid cell value for select. So it can't find an existing choice with the ID or name. And there's not much pointing you into the right direction for how you would be able to enable that. But if you were to look at the Airtable scripting API, airtable.com/developers/scripting, and then go to the format for either single select or multi-select. In this case, it's the same. When you're writing options to edit the field itself, not the values of a particular record, but the configuration of the field, you're allowed to pass new select options. So looking back at my script, some things that I'm doing, but I'm not currently displaying in that output I was showing before. I'm looking at what my existing options are. I'm just getting a list of names. When you pull in options by default, it's going to give you the color of each select option, the unique ID of each select option, and the name. The color is not too useful for me. And the ID is definitely not useful because each one would be unique. And there's no way to check if new values I'm passing are there with an ID because I don't know the ID yet. I want the name, and that's what I'm doing here. Then what I want to do is look at, for all of the values I'm passing, I could be updating several fields at once. I just want what I'm passing for the select field. Again, I want the name, just a list of names, not objects, and then I'm getting them as a set. The reason why I want a set is in JavaScript, arrays can have duplicates, where if I had 2 of these that said 6, 6 would show up twice. With a set, it's very similar to arrays in a lot of different ways, except sets will cut out duplicates. 6 would only have appeared once. So just to demonstrate, I will actually make that change where both of these are now 6.
You know what? I don't think I knew that.
They're so useful. I think good old master calendar, when I was making that, I learned so much about so many other not as I guess beginner friendly operations and object types in JavaScript. So now I have a set. I have a unique list of the names of the values I'm trying to pass, and I have an array of the options that currently exist for that field. What I want to do, and this is not going to be the most efficient way to do that, I just want everyone to know, I want to talk through the process of what one could do to solve this problem. I want to first check if there are payload options in the first place. If there's none, then I don't want to do all of this checking. I'm not passing anything. It wouldn't matter. If there are, what I want to do, I want to turn this back into an array. So sets and arrays are very similar, but they don't, they're not exactly the same. And so certain operations that you might do on an array, like push to add something to the end of an array, it's actually add with set. So the functions that you would perform are similar but slightly different. I like to work with 2 arrays or 2 sets. So I'm turning this set back into array. And to do that, I'm going to do the old-fashioned new array, and then I'm going to use spread notation to get my payload options back into an array. Then, again, not the most efficient way to do it. In fact, this is not the way I would recommend to do it, but I want to talk through the sort of methodology of what we're doing. What I want to do is loop through each of those options that I'm trying to pass and see if they exist in the current field options. If they exist, I don't have to change anything. If they don't exist, then I'm going to have to update that field before I try to pass the payload so that those values will be able to stick. So with my new array of options that I'm trying to pass, good old for each option, check. I'm going to do simple, does this value exist? Exists equals, and I'm looking in my existing options array. So I want to do existing options includes options. Doesn't like that. Why not? That should work. I don't know why it doesn't like that.
Sometimes, it just complains for no reason.
So either the current option exists or it doesn't. If it doesn't exist, this will return false. Exist will equal false. If it does exist, then that variable will equal true. If it doesn't exist, I want to do if not exist. Sure wish I could spell. If it doesn't exist, what I want to do, I should set up another array up here. So I'm going to create a new array called missing. So any option that doesn't exist currently that I'm trying to pass, I want to make sure that I want to add those. So if this option doesn't exist, I'm going to add it to missing. So missing, push, option. So after you've looped through each of the options that are in the list I'm trying to pass, if there's any that are missing, I need to update the field. Now, each field in Airtable has different requirements for how you edit the options. But what you want to do is go to, I already have a variable set up for the field itself, table.getField. So down here, I want to say field.update options async. And then I'm looking at the API just to double check. What I want to do is get the choices, and then I want to pass an array. Now, I have options that are currently in the field. I believe I had 5, and I want to pass new ones. The default behavior for when you're doing this is it's going to take your array and try and make those the set of options. If you don't pass options that already exist as part of your array, Airtable's not going to like it. There's actually a separate setting that you have to enable for this function for it to actually, for instance, if I tried to pass an array here that didn't include these 5, there's a separate setting I have to enable that says, hey, I didn't include these 5, delete them as options. That's, in this case, that's not what I want to do. So what I want to do is, like I said, I want to pass the options that I currently have, and that is my existing options array. And then I want to pass my missing array, also spread. And one thing that I will change really quickly, when I'm passing the option into that array, I'm going to pass it in the format Airtable prefers, name, option as an object. The reason I'm doing that is because, as I said previously, each of these select options has 3 properties: its ID, its color, and its name. So I'm just specifying the name is that option.
No, I see a bug.
That it needs to be a wait for async?
Well, no. The
what I do?
Existing options is not the one that you want. That's just the names.
Ooh, you're right. Okay. So I don't have a variable set up for that, but I could just do this. Get the field, get the options, get the choices, and then it should be fine.
Yep.
Great catch. So hopefully that works. Real quick from the top, we have a table, we have a field. That field is called select. I have set up to look at what are the current options in that field. And then I have a set of values I'm trying to add, in this case, by creating new records. I have 2 of the value 6, 1 of the value 8. I'm looking through what my current options are, and if those options don't exist, I'm trying to add them as options to the field before I update the table. Hopefully this works.
I think it will.
It did. Yay.
Nice.
And hopefully that was clear. So you'll see 6, 6, and 8, but if I were to look in my options, I only have 1 value as 6. Just so you know, if you don't pass a color option, it will always default to gray. And then an ID will be generated at the creation of the select option. And hopefully that was clear. Again, this is not in production. I wouldn't have written the script in exactly this way, but it is, for me at least, the easiest way to explain it as it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all that to say, you wonder if Airtable specifically didn't make it easy to where it just automatically populated new fields because, I don't know, maybe they were trying to like protect you from creating duplicates or misspelled options, maybe. I don't know what the reasoning
I don't know either. It's one of the few naturally occurring, if you will, points of data validation in Airtable where you can define a list of selectable options and then say, you selected one that doesn't exist. We're not going to allow you to update your records.
Yeah.
But if you're using Airtable like normal, if I go in here and say, 20, that option doesn't exist and it'll let me do it pretty simply. So why isn't there a simpler workaround to create records async or update records async? It would be great if you could, right now it only accepts one argument, an array of potential updates. It'd be great if there was additional arguments you could pass that would say enable creation of missing field selects if that's something that you wanted to do, so you don't have to write something that is the equivalent of this before it. Yeah. Especially if you have more than one select field. Now you could loop this, so the structure of this would be the same for any type of select, or I should say select or single select, not including collaborator fields, which are a different, similar field type, but this doesn't quite work with that. No. But yeah, if you had more than 5, it certainly would feel even more arduous than it feels now.
Yeah. And now here's the kicker. This code will not work in an automation scripting step.
Yeah, you can't. I believe it's the editing the options portion. It Correct. Won't. Yeah, everything else, you could put in error handling. So I like to use try and catch in JavaScript. So I could wrap this in a try clause, and then if it gets stopped because a missing select option, doesn't exist, you can have it do something else. Maybe add it to a single line text field and then do some data cleanup later.
Yeah.
But that's certainly not ideal.
Right. Yeah, it's frustrating. I worked on a project that had to overcome that in an automation, and it was just, we figured it out. I know some people that just use the REST API in that use case, and that seems crazy that you have to do that, but
yeah. So for the AMA, is it next week where it's the developers and
Yep, next week.
Maybe I'll pose that as a question.
Yeah.
Close the gap because you could do it somewhere else.
Right.
Adding parity would make it.
Yeah, especially if the reasoning was to help you avoid issues. It's like people are just going to come up with these crazy workarounds anyways. So just make it easy to do what everybody wants to do anyways.
Yeah, because you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
You don't want to do this. This isn't what you want to do.
Right. But in a script, it's not as bad what you did. In an automation, it's crazy what you have to do to work around it.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do that. We'll do that down the road.
I think we did. I think last season we had a segment on that. But cool. Well, thank you, Camille, sharing that. Everybody now knows to stay out of scripting with options.
So normally I'm the one everyone should learn scripting. It's so much fun. You gain so many skills, and then every now and again we'll get one of these, and I'm like, not great.
Yep. All right, let's move on. So today, this segment is App a Day. We're going to look at Airtable's marketplace, see what's going on there, and look at one of the apps that's relatively new. And let's see, it was added, the day before Christmas, 24th. So
it's a Christmas miracle.
That's right. They actually pushed updates. That would have been a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
So somebody at Airtable working on the holidays. Very good. So send SMS easily. So I saw this in the marketplace and I was just wanted to see what it looked like. So I installed it, and it actually easily sends SMS. So it's kind of cool. You can actually, to test it, they allow you to send 10 text messages before you have to purchase anything. And they don't make you pick a phone number that sends. It really just happens. There's no API key involved. You literally just have to pick your phone number field. Now, this was kind of frustrating because it actually has to be a phone field. It can't be a single line text or a formula text or a field. It literally has to be a phone number like this. So that's the only one that works. Like I had this in a formula. You can't pick a formula field. So that's kind of frustrating because you can have phone numbers in other types of fields.
Well, I'm wondering how it plays now with synced tables, because sometimes synced fields don't come in as their original field type and they'll default to a long text field.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did not try that on a sync field. So yeah, you pick your phone number, you pick where the text is, so that the text message actually has to be in a field. So I just have a quick send, and then you can specify a status field or something, a quick status of where it'll output the response. And how this works is this is going to send to everything that's in here. So you don't pick like a single record of one person to send to. It's going to send a text to everybody that's in the view that you're on. So if you only want to send to like one person, you have to create a new view and filter to that person or the people that you want to send a text to. And then you'll see this change from send to SMS to just send one. So it's basically whatever is visible in the view that you're on. And and then you just hit send and it will instantly send. So I sent to this one that I have a Google voice to, and I need to refresh. Interesting.
is it that one? Yeah.
There it is. Yep. Hi, how is this working? Okay, so and it actually looks like it sends different. Okay, yeah. So this is the test one that is coming from their test account that I didn't create. So that's it. It very is easy. Send SMS easily. So if you have a very basic use case and you want to test it out, you can send 10 text messages before you have to purchase, and you don't have to log in or anything to their website to be able to test it out. So just pick the field. So nice little app. But I wanted to take things up a notch. But before I do that, just a quick shout out to join our community at BuiltOnAir. Amazing people in our Slack community talking about Airtable and other things. We'd love to have you join. So join us at BuiltOnAir.com/join. We have some exciting things coming up this year. So we'd love to have you join with thousands of other Airtable users and fans. Our goal is to get to 2,000 members of the community this year. So we'd love to have you join at BuiltOnAir.com/join. So I wanted to take things up a notch. I have a use case where I participate in kind of a nonprofit church group, and very often I need to send out text messages to a larger audience, and it's annoying when you get a text message from a group and somebody replies all, kind of an email, the reply all feature. Well, in text messaging, if you send out to a group, there really isn't an option to just reply once. I know on my phone, I have Android, and I can make it to where any replies just go back to one, just come back to me, but that's an all or nothing setting. So that's across the board. So in the past, I would send out a text message. I would change that setting in my phone and then send out a group text. So then they would reply individually, but then I'd go back and change my settings because I do have other group messages that I want to be, a typical group. And so that's kind of annoying that you have to go into your settings and change it across the board and then come back. And so I was thinking of a use case. I actually looked for a software solution that would do this. And there definitely are some out there, but most of them require a monthly subscription. And I was like, I don't do it enough. It's not for business use case. And so I was like, I'd be willing to pay kind of on a per whenever I needed to do this type approach. And so when I found that send SMS text, send SMS easily, I realized that there's a company behind it called TextBelt. So that app in the marketplace is actually from this company called TextBelt that's actually been around for 10 plus years, doing just very basic text messaging. Very similar to Twilio. If you've used Twilio, I've used Twilio quite a bit. This one actually is simpler to use than Twilio. And so literally in about 20 minutes, I implemented this use case of being able to send out a group message that sends to each user individually and then accepts the response. Any responses that they reply to that text message gets added right back into Airtable. So just by setting this, I did have to purchase an API key for $3. You can get 50 text messages. So and it's a one-time fee. It's not a monthly. And so you just fill up whenever you run out of your quota. And so that makes it nice. You just buy as you need. There's discounts if you buy more. But so what I did was, I have my contact list with users, and they've got their phone number. We're going to have to troubleshoot. We've got time. So Camille, I'm going to need your help. Okay. So it actually works to send. Actually, we'll come back to this because this was frustrating me. So basically I have my users, they have their phone numbers, and then I want to create a text message that I send out, just something simple. Hey, everyone, please respond ASAP, whatever your text message is going to be. Then you pick the users that you want to send it to. And I could probably improve this to make it send to all or something, but you can just quickly add everybody that you need to send that to from your contact list. That pulls in their phone numbers. And then what I have is a button that runs a script. So if I look at this script down here, this send text script, what it does is it basically gets the record. So this is kind of a shortcut. You could run this and it'll ask you what record that you want to pick, but you can also set a button that basically auto fills this input.record async, and then it'll automatically run when you click the button. So it actually works either way. So it's a kind of nice way to quickly run scripts off of a single record and pass that record into your script. And then all I'm doing is I'm getting the message from that record, what the message is, and then I'm getting all of the phones. So this returns an array of the phones that come from my contact list. And then I'm simply looping through each of the phones and calling this send. And this send does a remote fetch async to that text belt, to their API. And it passes the message to the phone number. So it does send one message per phone. So I'm kind of faking the group message. You're really just looping through each user and sending one message to their phone. So that's how you avoid the reply all, because you're really just sending one text at a time, which I've had to done manually, and you're copying and pasting to each person. So this definitely is easier. But the trick here is you're replying, you're giving it a webhook URL, and that basically is just telling this text service that if they respond to that email or that text, then notify me at this URL that they responded. And so Airtable, which I'll show next, has automations that can be triggered off of a webhook URL. So you use Airtable as essentially your receiving server for any replies that come. The other thing you have to do is you have to specify this kind of code that you create when you buy your API key. And you have to always include this. This is kind of how they know that it's a valid message. It's kind of a way to validate. And so you're also not spamming. You're supposed to specify, what entity the message is coming from. So I set it up where it has to have BuiltOnAir somewhere in the message. So I add that to any message that's going out so that their service knows it's coming from the right one based off of the API key. And that's it. So you're basically just sending it, and then you're passing along this response URL of where you're going to get responses from. So if I were to run this, this is gonna send to two people, one to that Google Voice, and then the second one goes to my actual cell phone. So I will get a text message I just received on my phone, and if I check I got a new one. These are my tests from before. Hey everyone, please respond now. And I'm gonna say Dan and hello. So I'm gonna respond here. But before I do that and hit submit, let's look at our automation. So on the receiving side, we set up an automation, and we set it up to say when a webhook is received. And so Airtable actually gives you the webhook URL. So you simply hit copy here. And I already did this beforehand, but you would copy this URL. And that's what I had in my script to send each time I send a message. So I'm saying whenever somebody responds, they're going to hit this automation. And I did a test here, and it'll tell you once you do a test, you hit this button, and then it will receive that. And then this is what the response from that text service looks like. It has a unique ID for that response. It tells you who the number came from, the reply, and what their reply was. And then all I'm doing for now is I'm just creating a record in my right here for any responses. And so ideally, I would tie those. One thing I didn't like is there was no unique identifier of where it came from, of which message it came from. I think in the future, I might be able to pass as part of the webhook, like a URL parameter that I could maybe pull in so I knew what message they were responding to. So that is a to be continued feature. But basically, let's run it. So if I send a response, I should get in a second here, the automation will run, and there it is. Got our response back, and I know it came from this number, which is my Google Voice number. And so my automation ran and performed the update to create the record. Now, what I was trying to do and where we could troubleshoot for some bonus time, we've got some time. So the response that we get from the text service gives us a phone number in this format. So it's more kind of a standard. It also adds the country code. And by the way, this text service only works in the US. So if you're international, this won't work. But it gives it in this format. Well, in our contacts, because I was using the app, I needed it to be a phone number. And so it formats it like this. And so I wanted to convert from this format into this format. And you know what's amazing is that this formula actually worked on this phone number, but not on this one, which is very strange. So what is going on, if we can troubleshoot this? So what I was basically doing was a regex replace, and I was taking out a space, a dash, and the parentheses. to basically remove everything. And then I also add this +1 in front of it. And so at first I did it without this right. And what was weird is, so if I do this, this is what I would expect it to be. That looks like it's right? But somehow the automations that run, so if I take this and I go to my responses, the value that I'm getting does not match this number, even though everything looks like it is. So somehow there's like this weird character, an unseen byte that's being inserted when I convert from here to there, because if I take out that, then it finds it. So it doesn't like the +1, and it's really, it actually doesn't like the plus whatever is in between the 1 and the 3 that somehow I'm not stripping out. Somehow there's some funky character at the beginning of this that doesn't get removed when I do this regex.
Can you do a trim? If you wrap regex, replace, and trim, does that do it?
On the phone or after the regex?
Outside of the regex, but before +1.
Yeah, I did that and it didn't make a difference, but
cool.
I'll
Great.
try it inside the phone. Maybe there. I didn't try that. Try that. Need to get the exact. No.
Okay. Could you, now we all love regex, could we not use regex and instead do value phone? Would that mess it up?
So value converts it to a number, right?
And it's sometimes reliable.
Ooh. Hey, look at that.
So now,
well,
I don't know if we've technically solved the issue by using a different function. Regex should work. I don't know. Is it, you are removing a space, right? A regular space.
Yeah.
There is
one in between there.
There is a regex, I don't actually know what they're called.
Yeah,
there's a white space thing that's not necessarily the space you get when you press the space bar.
Right.
And then there's
tabs, and
there's non-digit characters is another one. So if you just replace all non-digit characters with nothing, maybe that would work, because it should also do all variations of white space.
Right.
Because it's not a digit. I don't remember what those wildcards are.
I like value. That works. No regex.
There you go.
So what I could do now is, now that I have the contacts in this on my automation, I could do a lookup and add a find records, move this up and select my contacts, and then find it based off of a condition where standard phone is dynamic and then equal to the from number. Let's try that. See if that works. Okay, that worked. This was not working before, which is crazy. So now that I have the contact, I could automatically link it to the response. So you could automatically link your responses to your contact table. So that would be the next step that I would add. So you could build a full-blown text messaging solution where you can send out to a big group and then manage replies individually, which I think I'm going to use in my use case, which is very helpful.
Fun.
That is a cool way to use, and not too expensive. Just purchase this. Where's the pricing? There you go. So $5 for 200 text. So it gets definitely cheaper as you go. Probably should have done the $5 one. All right. And that concludes today's show. Did you have any final comments, Camille?
I just think of, I very rarely need to implement something similar. And the last time I needed to send a text to someone, I cheesed it by emailing their phone number, which every cell phone carrier has a different format of exactly how you pass the phone number. It's some variation of the phone number at, and then like T-Mobile-something.com or whatever. And then that will come into your phone as a text, a very strange looking text, but it'll get there. Yeah. That's not ideal. So don't do that. You could, don't do it.
Yeah. I've seen that before. Great. Well, thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time on the Built on Air podcast. Have a good week. Thank you for joining today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our sponsor, ontoair.com, and we will see you next time on the Built on Air podcast.